Right. Let's get in here. All right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, today on the Ted Jones World podcast, we have an amazing British comedian coming to the couch. My favorite British comedian, Drew Dunn.
Thank you so much, mate. It's great to be here. And honestly, I mean, you've made New York a new home for me. So I appreciate that. You've really welcomed me.
You're like full greened out today. I love it, dude.
Yeah, I'm feeling green.
What's up? What, Blue Jays fan? Just green?
No, I just came. I was in Edmonton a few weeks ago, and I was trying to get a hat where I go. But I did actually play. I was a bullpen catcher for the Blue Jays AA team when I was in like high school. I would go up there and like bullpen catch for their AA team, which was the Fisher catch, which was green. And it was, so it does have some value. I
love that,
like the way
dude.
it looked.
Some history too.
Yeah.
Bro, so I made the decision when I was like 12 years old between tennis and baseball. Okay. I was like MVP in my little league here in New York City, Peter Stuyvesant Little League. Okay. And it was just like the coaches in baseball and the coaches in tennis were like, now's the time where you really have to pick a sport. Totally. And tennis and baseball, both in like springtime sports. Yeah, right. It wasn't like a football and baseball where it could be like winter and spring. Yeah. So I ultimately decided to play tennis. I ended up playing tennis at UConn. But I took like tennis super seriously. And at the time, I never really took baseball that seriously. I was like a pitcher and a shortstop. But I do look back on it and be like, oh, man, like maybe I could have been, maybe it could have been one of those guys.
Ted Jones could be on the mound tonight.
Like, doing one of those freaking, like making it to AA is a huge accomplishment. Did you get paid to do that job?
No, it was, I mean, I got like tipped out by the team. I wasn't like drafted or anything like that. I ended up, I couldn't get paid through the organization because then you lose your NCAA eligibility, so I wouldn't have been able to play in college.
And where'd you play?
I played at Southern New Hampshire University, which is a D2 school. It was fun. I ended up getting hurt and falling out and started doing comedy shortly after. So
what position did you play?
I was a catcher for most of it. Then my last couple of years, I switched to being a pitcher, because I could throw really hard, but I knew I couldn't hit well enough to like make it to the big leagues. So started pitching. Hurt my shoulder, and then kind of had to just make that choice. Like senior year, do I redshirt for a year and do another year of college to get a degree I already know I don't want to use, or just suck it up, quit, and find some other stupid dream to pursue? Fastest I ever saw on a gun was, I think, 93, 94.
Holy
something like
Jesus,
that. Which is fast, but for a right-handed pitcher is not.
Well, I mean, but 15 years ago, I feel like that would have been like top tier, right?
Well, I know.
Greg Maddux days.
I mean, there were still guys like. Oh, thank you. I mean, there were still guys throwing like faster than that on my team even. So, I mean, I had like, the good thing is I had the in with the Blue Jays organization. So I had some people looking at me, but it was never going to be for hitting. I could just never figure it out, dude. I'd go in early to practice every day. I'd try and just make it work, and I just couldn't do it. So I was like, I can throw hard. Let's just see it.
Well, what do you think it was maybe?
I mean, hitting's the hardest thing to do in any sport, I think, statistically. And if you've ever tried to do it, it's just wild. I mean, I was a really good catcher, so I was really good at like trying to figure out what the pitcher would hit, but there was just a disconnect. I think I just developed so many bad habits when I was a kid that no matter how much I would try and break them, I would just fall into like having slow hands and dipping my shoulder and not being able to
using
hit
like enough hip initially.
Yeah, or not throwing my hands at it first. Like I had really slow hands, which is, you're not going to be able to hit anything over 90 miles an hour consistently if you don't have really fast hands through the strike zone.
Why'd you have this connection with the Blue Jays though?
So I played on a travel team when I was like 15, and my coach's son was he was on the Red Sox 40-man roster for a while. So he ended up getting arm fatigue, so he just wasn't throwing as hard. So he took some time off. Ended up getting dropped from the Red Sox organization, and then he was trying to like try out for all these other teams again. He was getting back in shape, that kind of stuff. So I went and just caught him like trying out for the Blue Jays team at this facility in New Hampshire, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't want the pitcher, but why don't you come and like catch for free? We only have one catcher on the roster, whatever." So so that really worked out. That was a great experience. I got that like kind of brush of what it's like. I mean, I'm in the locker room, I'm hanging out with the guys, I'm doing the whole thing. So even though I didn't make it to the big leagues, I still got at least a little bit of that.
You got a little
taste
hint
of it.
Yeah, man. That's like the same kind of thing. When I was like 14 and 15 years old, I was a hitting partner for some of the pros at the U.S. Open. Oh, dope. Like Megan Shaughnessy like stayed at my house. She was like a professional tennis player. Yeah. And then like like for her staying at my house, I got to play with her for like 20 minutes here and
that's
there.
great.
Dude, it's crazy how in baseball, though, you really don't see that many injuries unless you're a pitcher, right?
Yeah, pitchers are I mean, it's not a contact sport. That's obviously why like football gets a ton of injuries, and they've been really rounding the edges out. Like you can't hit the catcher at the plate anymore. That's where you'd get another like slew of injuries.
Oh, you mean like coming into home plate?
Yeah, you can't you're not allowed to do that anymore. Actually, one of the guys I trained with, he was the catcher at the time for the Fisher Cats when I was there. He was like one of the guys that like made it so that rule became a thing, because he was in like AAA and he got absolutely fucking like blindsided, railroaded. Brian Girolamo is his name. He was a great player. I think he's a coach now. But there's this video of him just getting absolutely like fucking CTE blown away. Like yeah, I mean, he just got totally messed up, and I think that made him like, that was one of the major cases where they're like, hey, we shouldn't be able to do this. These are like 35-year-old grown men at the peak of their physical condition, and only one of them has pads on, and one of them's not looking. It's like the worst hit in football happening exclusively in baseball. But yeah, the only other time you really see injuries is people sliding weird or running into like the wall, outfielders and shit like that.
Like Jeter when he popped out his shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. It's those kind of like fast, quick hit kind of movements. Because that's the thing, is you do nothing and then do everything all at once.
Yeah, man. It's also, it looks like they're trying to change a good amount of the rules though in baseball. I see like they're putting the pitching clock in, so it like ends 30 minutes faster. Are you for these rules, or what do you think about them?
Well, I think they're trying to do it just to make the game more interesting, so that they can get this Zoomer generation of people to be interested in baseball. Because I'd imagine baseball's probably at record low, maybe not attendance numbers, but definitely like viewing numbers. I'd imagine.
Sure. Well, even like an attendance game, you watch sometimes and you'll be like, well, like there's 5,000 people at this Oakland Athletics game, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some teams that'll sell out every week, no matter what. But then there's other teams that like, they just don't care unless their team's in the playoffs, and then all of a sudden everyone's a fan and buys the T-shirts and the hats and shit like that. But yeah, I mean, as far as like speeding the game up, I do think that baseball needs to modernize. Baseball really is like the old white guy at the table where they're like, I got it, I do it my way, don't try and change me, it's fine, everybody likes me. Where everyone's really like, geez, this guy's kind of boring, you know?
Like changing with the times. I
mean, I don't know what the solution to that is. I don't think timing everybody running to their positions and timing in between pitchers is necessarily the answer to that. I think, honestly, they need to almost do what hockey did, which is like revamp a lot of the rules where like, hockey, when they went on strike, they came back and like made it more advantageous for goal scoring to happen, to make the game more interesting. They made the goalies' pads a little bit smaller. You know, they like increased the size of the offensive zone, things like that. So baseball needs to do something like that. They're trying to do things with like making it so you can't shift the players around. But I
saw that.
I don't think that's the solution to the problem either. I don't know what it is, but they need to figure it out, because if not, it's nobody cares.
Well, if you see like with basketball, they're trying to, I think, make things kind of quicker. Like when you think of baseball, I mean, it does really take a long time. Totally. And then you see guys like new owners, Steve Cohen, putting a lot of money into the game. So we'll see what happens if more owners take it like a basketball approach, like bring in the talent that brings in, all the crowd. And
stuff. Because that's the thing, is like if you don't have that interest from like the youth level of a sport, the game's going to eventually die. Like in the town I grew up in, there used to be like 5 different little league teams. I mean, it's like 7 different like leagues of teams that were all in the same town. You'd have the Northwest League that had a bunch of teams, and then a Cal Ripken League that was totally different. And then now there's just one. So it's like, even like at that young kid level, I just think there's more interest for kids. Kids would rather go try and be fucking professional streamers or football players or anything but baseball. Where, I mean, when I was a kid, it was everybody played baseball.
You play in the Little League World Series?
No, I was never on a good enough team.
And where'd you grow up, by the way?
I grew up around Boston, New Hampshire area. And then I actually, for like kindergarten through 6th grade, I was out north of Seattle. So my dad worked for Microsoft, and it just kind of dragged us all out there. Let's go. Yeah. So, basically just kind of lived in the Northeast, the Northwest, and I moved back to the Boston area, New Hampshire, in 2004.
And did you go to college in Southern New Hampshire? Southern New Hampshire, as you say.
Yeah,
you ever meet Bill Gates?
No, I never met Bill Gates. Yeah, no. I mean, I think my dad has. He's probably been, because he was there pretty early on in Microsoft. So I think there was like meetings and shit where like they'd have those big meetings and Bill Gates would actually still be at them. He had
Steve Ballmer is a nut. Speaking of like owners who have put a ton of money into the in their teams, like the LA Clippers owner.
Yeah,
he's put together an insane roster. I don't know how they're doing this year. I mean, it's just the beginning of the season, but I mean, putting all this money into sports teams, it's only getting better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I just think, why not, dude? If I was a billionaire, I would probably go try and own a sports team and just jack them up, get them some nice. Everything's got to be nice. Like, why not? What else are you gonna do when you have that much money?
Cuban was talking about Mark Cuban, who owns Dallas Mavericks, was talking about how he is just like a pawn piece in the whole scheme of like the Dallas Mavericks organization, because it's not like any other companies where Google has a great quarter. All the people who invest in Google aren't going out in the streets and being like, woo, like, yeah, Google. You know, like if the Mavericks make the playoffs and then, you know, win the championship, everybody's freaking out.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's all people care about. Like I said, there's those sports teams that have 5,000 people show up to every game. Then all of a sudden they're in the playoffs, and now they've always been a big fan. They just never had time. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's just part of the deal with anything. People want what's hot. You know, it's true in comedy too.
Well, did you start comedy in Boston?
Yeah. So I started. I mean, I was living in New Hampshire at the time, but Boston was like the real scene. But I always tried to attack New England as a whole when I was doing it. So like even when I was just doing open mics, I would do open mics in Maine and New Hampshire and Rhode Island and Connecticut. So I would just be driving all over the place just to meet as many people as I could, try and get in all these places. And then it worked out where, like, as I was progressing, I was then progressing in all of these different places. So I was able to kind of get a lot of work to the point where I was able to quit my day job when I was like 4 years into stand-up, just by doing like local feature work around New England and shit like that. And just give me time to pursue other things, learn how to do animation, you know, learn how to do video editing, all those kind of skills that now are like essential if you even want to be just a stand-up comic, unless you want to, you know, pay an editor a bunch every fucking week, which I can't afford.
And then I see also are you still doing those dates, like when you're touring in Rhode Island, and I see you're going up to New Hampshire and stuff like that? Are those the same clubs that you've been going to for a while?
Yeah, or they're, you know, one thing led to the other thing, you know. It's like I did 5 shows with this guy, who then I got introduced to this person, who then introduced me to this booker, kind of thing. So now when I go back, I do you know, a lot of small theater gigs. I'll do like the clubs and stuff like that, like Off Cabot or Laugh Boston, things like that. And then and then the good thing is if I'm ever up there for like a wedding or something dumb, there's always somebody I can hit up somewhere to at least get a spot or get on stage in some capacity, which is nice. It's a good thing to have.
So you like growing up in Boston, or how close were you to Boston?
I mean, I was born in Jamaica Plain, so I was in like, you know, just outside of Boston, but it was really like it's Boston. That's more Boston than like Boston proper, like Jamaica Plain, Everett. I mean, they fucking, you know, they talk like this, dude. I mean, it's not everybody.
You didn't pick it up because you went there when you were like 6 or 7.
Well, yeah, that's what it is. Well, that it's like, I mean, you live everywhere else, and like, I think what really like indicates an accent is like if everyone in your family talks like that. Like if you have aunts and uncles that are fucking talking like this, you're more likely to pick up a fucking thing or two.
Dude, you know what I'm saying? Straight out of Family Guy.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, you know, it's a Family Guy straight out of fucking Rhode Island, which is really straight out of fucking Boston, because that's where they are.
Do you have any siblings though that picked up the accent because they moved here before they were 6 years old, like you?
No, not really, because I mean, I think too, like there's way less people with accents in general when it comes to those regional accents, I think, as we get older, because so many people are getting raised by watching TV and YouTube videos and stuff.
Like
so
you're hearing all the accents.
Yeah, you don't just hear your parents telling you about the world, or your teacher who has a southern accent or whatever it might be. I think less people probably statistically have their like regional accents now, not just because of moving around and stuff, but
dude. Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Eventually we'll all just sound the same, Ted Joe. We'll sound just like this.
We're all just AI robots.
Hello.
And then, and that's like also picking like sports too now. I'm a big US Open fan.
Yeah.
They don't have line judges standing in the court going out anymore. Somebody just voiced over out. And then every time the ball's out now, I guess somebody just presses the button.
Like a DJ. Out. They just hired a DJ to do it instead. Yeah.
It's crazy, man. AI is taking over everything. Yeah. I mean, we'll see people hologramming in, I think, to comedy shows.
Yeah, so, I saw that. They did that at JFL this year. They had Andy Kindler in like a box.
I saw Kenan Thompson doing it the other day or something. But what were you talking about? Talking about JFL.
Well, so yeah, it was like he does like a state of the industry every year.
Who?
Andy Kindler. So he's done it forever, and he just comes in and just basically shits on everybody and then walks out. But this time he was in like that virtual reality like box that you've probably seen. And
how big was the box?
It was 6.5 feet, something like that. So it's like a double-sized refrigerator basically, and he's just standing in it. You can see him perfectly from all angles. It's really neat, like technology, but it's felt such a disconnect, and it really got kind of tired after a while.
How did it look though? Did they like wheel on the monitor onto the stage?
It was already there by the time everybody got there, and then someone came out and like introduced him, and then he just walks. He didn't walk out. He just appeared. And then, I mean, most of his bits were about, I'm not really here. I'm a hologram, blah, 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 which again is funny for a minute, but it does kind of get tired. And I think that'll be the same thing when you have comics that are like doing that from the metaverse and stuff. I think instead of it, people coming into real life from the metaverse, the future of that world is us going into virtual reality and doing shows for people that are in virtual reality. I mean,
like us putting on our headsets too.
Yeah, exactly. And looking like whatever avatar you want to and standing on a stage and doing comedy in that space rather than bringing them into this space, because people aren't going to take cartoons and animations like that stuff seriously, I don't think, when they could just see Dave Chappelle on that same stage later that year. But if you're a kid who's never been to a comedy show before, you can't even go to a comedy show, you're 16, you can't get in unless your mom takes you, or you live in some place of the world that there is no comedy, and all of a sudden the best comic in the world, or at least in your eyes, can just appear to you in the place that you normally just hang out with your friends in the metaverse or whatever these things. Because I think virtual reality is one of those things that like my generation won't really take to it until it's forced upon them, or it's really easy access where it's contacts or glasses or something. But the younger generation has already eaten that shit up like crazy, man. I mean, if you go look on any virtual reality game, just go look up like a clip of people playing that game. It's always little kids. So that space is dominated by the younger generation. So if you want to reach the younger generation, you got to go to where they are. That's why we're on TikTok. That's why we're on all these things. Like, you want to go get in front of that virtual reality audience. You're not going to get people from the Laugh Factory to show up to the metaverse because a metaverse guy looked funny on the stage. But you are going to get those kids to see you right there because you're right present in their face. Then they might come and see you in real life eventually if you happen to come to their town. So I think that's like, if you're a comic trying to get into that next space, I think you got to go in VR, and it's still super early now. You're not going to get a big benefit from it, but it's another place for people to see you, reach you, and think you're funny, which is all we're trying to do.
Have you done one of those shows yet in the metaverse?
I did one. It wasn't like in a proper club or anything. It was really just, the problem with that stuff is it's very chaotic. So in real life, you feel like you have to follow social rules and norms and stuff like that. Where there, people can just log in, say crazy stuff, and then disappear. There's no security guard to throw them out. There's no embarrassment or anything like that. But I know Kenan Thompson is sponsoring this club, or he's working with this club called Failed to Render Comedy Club. I've started to look into them and stuff. It's something that I would definitely be interested in doing, as far as like just experimenting in that world. Especially, I mean, you can change the way you look. You can be a totally different, you could go up there as a character and totally be in that character, and not even, I could truly go up and be a British comic for 15 minutes and never have anybody question it. You know what I mean? So there's way more possibilities and creativity in that stuff. But I think both are still going to exist forever. Even if comedy becomes big in the metaverse, where people are going to see live shows in the metaverse consistently, people are still going to be coming to see live shows in real life as well. So, I mean, did you see that thing where there was like an AI rapper that got signed for like a multi-million-dollar deal? It fell out, but this guy is like, I think it's written, the songs are written by a white guy, performed like spoken in a black voice that's generated by AI or something like that. And the guy signed like a crazy multi-million-dollar deal. And then every rapper was like, what the fuck? This is stupid. Why aren't I getting, and then they dropped it just because there was so much like upheaval. But that shows,
because AI is taking over actual humans' jobs.
Yes, exactly.
And that's in a situation you never even think about it. That's not replacing a cashier at the grocery store. That's like full taking somebody's talent.
Replacing art.
Replacing it, yeah.
Which is crazy. I think there will be fun in that, but I think at the end of the day, I've talked about this with some other comics, but like I think the baseline of it is like the flaws are what makes things good. You know, if you have like this masterful, perfect movie that's written by an AI and rendered by an AI, and every actor in it is an AI voice that's never a real person, I think those will be fun to experience, but I think that eventually people will grow tired of them because they'll become either predictable or they'll become just kind of mundane, where the human experience and really feeling that connection to the creator is half the reason people consume content in the first place these days. It's not that like, wow, that was the best thing ever. You could go make the best thing ever, and if people aren't looking your way, they might not even see it or recognize it as the best thing ever. But if you're making statistically the best thing ever, people will want to watch it. But if you don't have to make the best stuff if people are already looking your way. You just got to provide them with something that's true to you. If people are interested in what you're making, that's the same thing with filmmakers. Same thing. People want to watch a Scorsese film or something like that is because they know what to expect. So I think you might lose that when you have like AI generating entire movies, which is going to happen. Because here's the thing, like if you can go on multiple websites now and just type in any words and an AI will generate an image of that thing. Have you seen any of this stuff?
Well, how do you mean?
So like, I forget the fucking name of it, but there's a bunch of them where you go in and it's like a Google search bar. You'll just type in like a purple apple sitting on a glass coffee table.
Oh, and it'll make a painting of it.
It'll make it look, sometimes it'll look real. Sometimes it'll look like a painting. It'll do it in like different styles. And then it'll give you like options of that stuff. So for me, I'm like, man, if they're making images, how long until they're making full movies? That's how we started as humans. We made images first, and then we figured out that if you put all those images together, then it makes a movie. So it's only a matter of time before an AI is rendering those images so quickly and so like exquisitely that you're going to be able to make a movie out of it. Which I'll watch the movie, but I don't know if that'll be like what I look forward to, because
might be too perfect.
I think the human connection is more important than that. Like I was saying, I think like knowing that this came from Ted Jones, that's people like that. People like watching a Leonardo DiCaprio movie because it's Leonardo DiCaprio, not because necessarily it's a perfect movie. You know, I think it's both of those things.
I think that, you know, now that YouTube has been around for, I don't know, 15 years, something like that, still kind of in its baby stages. It just feels like when you think about creators, you think about people on YouTube can do kind of whatever they want. They have like full control over their audience, and people who are like the younger generation who are watching vlogs and stuff, it seems like they connect to the vloggers who will have that funny thing that maybe wouldn't be in a Hollywood picture movie because it shows them being too personal or being too raw. Like I watched a Mr. Beast video the other day, and how many, you know, cuts and how everything is perfect. Totally. But then in one shot, like the audio guy came running in and he wasn't supposed to be in the shot, and Mr. Beast was like, "Oh, is that a contestant? No, that's just the audio guy, Rick." Something like that. Like these little things that personalize the audience experience.
Yeah, totally. And that makes it fun for the viewer, because they feel like they're getting that backstage, behind the scenes look, which is why podcasting is so big, which is why all this stuff is so big. People just want to feel like they're in the room.
Exclusive access, which brings you to like the NFTs. Being a part of that group, and then having to, like, people will remember that you were part of that group because you have this specific thing from that 10 years ago show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then just like you have the real thing. You're the only one who has the real thing. It is all just that exclusivity type stuff.
How do you feel about YouTube though? Think about that, because I know you have a bunch of stuff on there that has done very well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag with all social media right now, because a lot of this social media, they want to put you in a box, I think, and YouTube included, where they want you to be a stand-up comedian or a podcaster. Yeah, they want you to, they just want to put you into a bucket of, this is the content you make, and don't go outside of this world or you're not going to get any views.
I feel like that sometimes too.
It's totally
as scary
like
as that is, also to say on the waves that like we are putting out this podcast and shit. Like we are reliant on whatever form of podcast you guys are listening to. If this is Amazon, if this is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you're watching on YouTube, whatever. I mean, we're at the mercy of who puts it forward.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like, people are like, oh, there's no gatekeepers now. It's like, no, there is. Definitely still gatekeepers. You still have to figure out how to bust through and make them show you to a bunch of strangers. That's tricky. But yeah, I think.
But talk about that, the niche.
Well, I think it's important now to lean into that, because, and the most important thing is to make sure that your niche is what you want to be known for. So many people now get famous for the one quick thing, whether they're making fucking SpaghettiOs with their shirt off or talking to their grandma or whatever it is. They go famous for this one thing, but it's like, is that what you want to be forever? Can you build a career off of that and do that? And some people don't want that. Some people just want to go viral and get the thrill and the adrenaline rush that you get of going viral and put out that content and share it with people. But for me, as a stand-up comic, that's my goal, is to be known to this world as a funny stand-up comedian. Because when the world knows you as a funny stand-up comedian, they want to listen to your podcast. They want to watch the TV show you come up with. They've known that for their whole lives, people, that comics make funny other things, from movies to shows to all that stuff. Where if you get famous for being on a TV show and then you want to do stand-up comedy, that can work, but it's not going to be as easy of a transition, I think. You know, like, you'll get that temporary boost where people are buying your tickets for that year because they know you from that show, but then the show ends, it goes away, and they're not that emotionally invested in what you're doing. So it's a balancing act, man. Because I've made mistakes with the algorithm where I'll have a video go viral that's like a stand-up clip, and then I'm like, oh, cool. Now that people are looking my way, how about check out this animation, check out this podcast clip, check out this other thing, and you just see those views go away. And then the next stand-up clip you post is like way less than even what you were getting before, and you're like, man, is this? So I should just post stand up then. Is it frustrating to like, do I have to just post stand up then, or is it like, but then you look at like the like ratios that the other stuff is getting, and it's similar to the stand up clips. They're just not getting continually pushed out, which is frustrating, but it's also like, I don't like getting hung up on those views anyway. I like just making what I want and putting it out there regardless, and just move on to the next one. Close your eyes, just make sure whatever I put out is good quality. It was good effort, because that's the thing, is quality over quantity for me, man. Like, because the number of people that, like, if I'm headlining a club on the road, people might not know me. They see me on the website, they Google me, then they see clips that, and any one of those clips, I'd be proud for them to click on. There's not one clip that I'd be like, oh, that one wouldn't sell a ticket, because it's like, if they find that, watch it, then they go, okay, I'll go see them. Then that's how you make fans. It's like, if they go on there and then watch the next one and it's shit, they won't come to see a show. They won't follow. They won't do all that stuff. So I'm like, everything I have to put out has to be to a certain standard. And I don't care if that makes it so I post once a week, twice a week, instead of 3 times a day, 5 times a day. I think it's... I think you got to do both things. You know?
And I think it's, like you said, it's tough to find a balance, but you listen to guys like Gary Vee who talk about posting 4 times a day, getting your name out there, or just journaling in your social experiment. So it's like, I don't know if there's going to be some app that brings them all together, but I think eventually you start to see everything in kind of one, and you'll be like, oh, this is Drew Dunn. This is everything that he's ever done on this one platform.
Yeah, totally. Well, I stopped trying to like convert people from one platform to the other.
That's also a very difficult thing to do.
Because there's no reason to, because there's enough people on both of those platforms. So instead of like being like, hey, Instagram people, go to my YouTube and watch it.
Well, let me ask you this though. If you were being paid significantly more on a YouTube, wouldn't you want to kind of transfer your Instagram people to your YouTube?
You would, but I don't think that it works like that. I think that like you'll get that small percentage of people that will convert, especially now with things like Linktree. You'll get those people to move over, but for the most part, where people see you, that's where they'll find you. That's where they'll see you again. That's where that person tends to spend more of their time watching that type of content, is on that social media. How often are people going from Instagram watching stand-up to then going to YouTube watching stand-up, then going to watch? It's like, no, they don't. They watch everything everywhere all at once, and usually they're just scrolling through TikTok or they're just scrolling through YouTube, and that's where they'll go and find you again. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't be present everywhere, but for me to go like, hey, everyone, go to my YouTube, go to my YouTube, go to my YouTube, go to my YouTube, it's tiring. It's like, what's the fucking point? I'll just keep posting on YouTube and get people there. And then when I have like a special that comes out, that's when I like, I'm like, hey, this is where you can get this. This is exclusively where you can get this. That's the time to like push people to that. Because for me, I'll edit one video and upload it to all 7 fucking apps that you have to upload it to now. There's no reason for them to go from my Instagram to go watch the same video on the YouTube short. But when there's a reason to, that's when I think I'll start pushing to be like, hey, this is the only place you can find this. If you want a special, this is where you go. And then everything else is clips.
Speaking of your next, I guess, hour, you're going to be releasing it on YouTube?
So I have a dry bar special coming out. Great. I recorded it last year, so I'm still waiting on a date for that, which is, they're just crazy backed up. It's a little frustrating, but nonetheless, hopefully before the end of the year that'll be out. That's like a 30-minute special.
Where'd you shoot that?
In Utah. So they have their own place in Provo, Utah, which is in like middle of Mormon country.
I was just gonna say, a bunch of Mormons out there.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a clean comedy special. That's what they do, is they produce clean comedy specials. So I'm not necessarily a clean comic, so my plan is I have that stuff already in the can recorded. I recorded my set in Phoenix as well with similar material. Okay, a longer set obviously because I was doing an hour, and I'm just going to release them both at the same time. So when the clean version comes out, you'll be able to go to my YouTube and watch the dirtier version if you want, or the longer version, or extra takes, or all of that kind of stuff.
Do you personally have the footage?
Yeah.
Have you already chopped it up?
I'm working on that now, because I'm also working on animating over the entire dry bar special as well, because I taught myself how to animate over the last couple of years.
How does that look? What service do you use?
I use
with Final Cut?
No, I use Adobe. So I use Adobe Premiere Pro to do my editing, and then Adobe Character Animator, After Effects, all that stuff to like do the actual animation. Yeah, I just taught myself on YouTube, like figured out.
What's the animation gonna look like? Which is the kind of whenever you're talking, kind of moving your mouth?
No, so I'm planning to like. I mean, a lot of my bits can kind of be sketches or have a lot of visual elements where I'm trying to like paint a picture of what I was doing or whatever it might be.
Oh, so you're animating the bits, not just you on
It'll start me on stage and then it'll cut to like what I'm talking about. Nice. So if I'm going to Home Depot, you'll see me in Home Depot seeing all the things I'm describing, going through the drive-through of a grocery or of a fast food place, whatever, a grocery store, all that kind of stuff, like whatever I'm talking about. I've done a couple of these before. So if you go to my YouTube or my Instagram, I have a couple where like I did it for a bit about hitting a beaver with my car or about going to Dunkin' Donuts and seeing like
your
this
buffet bit the other night, by the way, was killing me.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, that was brand new actually. That was the first time I said it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, nice, that was like, I forgot the way I wanted to end it, but it was true. I mean, I was just in Vegas last week and I went first day there. I had nothing to do. I had no shows. I had nothing, and I was like,
by yourself?
Yeah, I was like, my wife wasn't with me. None of the comics for the festival were there yet, or at least none that I knew yet. So I was like, I'm just gonna go walk around Vegas for a while. And I found a buffet, and I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to try a Vegas buffet. And just sat down there and just ate for fucking hours, dude. Unlimited alcohol, unlimited food for like $90 or something like that. I wasn't leaving.
That sounds expensive though.
Well, I mean,
$90. Well, I guess for
dinner, and it's like it was one of the nicer ones too. Like they had like everything. They had.
Do you have a spot that night?
No, I had nothing. So I had absolutely nothing to do all day. I booked it and then got like my schedule for the festival tape. It was for Laugh After Dark, so they film sets like Don't Tell and stuff too, so you can get a clip through them, which is great. And then I had like a spot later that week at Brad Garrett's Comedy Club. But that first day I had nothing. So I was like, fuck it, dude. So I just went and got fucking hammered. I was eating food the whole fucking time. I was there for a couple hours, dude, to the point where they kept trying to clean up my table. And like I said in the bell, I was like, no. I'm not done eating yet. Bring it back.
You're just watching people throw through
Why don't you go get me another margarita and a fresh napkin? Okay, let's pretend this is
Do round they have like pitchers there?
Oh no, they like make them fresh at the bar. It was very nice. It was a really nice place. It was at the Wynn.
There you go, Steve Wynn. Nice work.
Yeah. Steve
Amazing, dude. So I was just about to freaking ask something that we got lost in thought with the
buffets, comedy,
buffets and comedy, dude.
Yeah, that's.
Do you have anything exciting coming up at the end of this year? Hopefully that Dry Bar special before the end of this year.
Yeah, hopefully the Dry Bar special coming out. We're doing our first live. I do a podcast called Character Debates, where we bring on comics and we all debate in character on ridiculous topics. Like we've done, like should weed be legal? But we'll bring in like a stoner mom versus I'll play the kid who didn't get picked up at school because his mom, you know what I mean? Like in debate, shit like that. So Yosemite Sam versus Matthew McConaughey on gun rights, shit like that. So we're doing our first live one in San Diego this weekend, actually. So
nice.
That's exciting. We've never done it live. Like we'll film it and stuff like that. But to do it in front of a live audience will be a fun experience.
Would you ever do a split tour where you could do stand up and then the podcast afterwards?
Yeah, for sure. Because honestly,
that's a great model. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to get this show made to be like a proper TV show. That's our goal. We went and did stand up and pitch at JFL this year. Went well. So we have some leads on that stuff. But now they want you to make everything yourself first. So they're like, yeah, that's great. You have a year of growth and you have a few thousand listeners a month. That's fun. Go make the pilot. Like, no, we want you guys to help us make like, no. You make the pilot. And then if we like it, we'll think about it. And I was like, okay, so that's where we're at now. That's every fucking trying to get anything on TV ever now is like, go make money. And then when it's making money, we'll buy it. For more of your money, then it's like, no, and then I don't need you fucking idiots.
Yeah, well, because it seems like everybody's just trying to do as much as they can independently now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the model because I think it's because of that. Because if you go do the industry route and get pitched, maybe you'll get lucky and get your show made. But unless you're already a super famous person, it's probably not going to happen because they could just go pick a famous person and have their audience immediately watch the show, guarantee that much more advertising, blah, 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 blah. There's nobody making really independent comedy movies that are like big. Nobody's making any comedy movies, regardless of like, the Adam Sandler equivalent type comedy movies when he was coming up. So that has to be done independently. Nobody's throwing that kind of money around. So
did you see what Matt Damon said about why they kind of don't make just random movies anymore?
Well, yeah.
Like the DVD back end.
The DVD which makes sense. I mean, it's like everything. Everybody wants everything to be free now. From your stand-up to my stand-up to the show you make to everything needs to be free. The music. They want every a minute of music to be free. They want movies to be for everything that makes hundreds of $1 million, costs $100 million to make.
I remember those iTunes. I was spending like $14 a month on
just to get an album.
Songs. Yeah. My parents were so pissed.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like
LimeWire you needed to get. Now everything is shoved in your face for free.
Yeah, now it's like it's free, and then if it makes money, then it makes money.
It's
and if
battling
not,
for attention.
Totally. And that's what it is. I mean, that's what we're all trying to do, right?
That's the currency.
That's what we're hoping this podcast will do, is we'll capture a little piece of people's pie chart. They'll listen to the show. And that's the name of the game now, is like provide a great product. So for me, that means be funny. Be funny every time and make people see that. And how do you make people see that? You got to be fucking everywhere. You got to put your face out. You got to try and grab just, even if it's a minute a day of people's times. If you can get 1 million people a minute of their time a day, then you just keep doing that over and over and over again and just trying to, and now we're just fucking throwing spaghetti against the wall going, you like this? How about this, you fucking idiot? Yeah.
How did getting married change your comedy, if at all?
Well, I was already engaged pretty much right when I was planning. I got engaged the same year I started doing comedy. So I was 21. I got engaged like actually, no, I was, trying to think. Yeah, no, I got engaged when I turned 21. I started comedy 6 months later. So I was already like planning to get married. I met my wife senior year of high school, and we just kind of, it never even crossed our mind to break up. Everything was going great. Everything's well now.
You went to the same college?
Yeah, we went to the same college together and stuff like that.
Wow,
yeah.
Dude.
Because we went to like Westfield State for the first year, then transferred to Southern New Hampshire University, and then finished up online and all that kind of shit, dude. Yeah.
Did you go to Southern New Hampshire though to play baseball?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I transferred there specifically because it was a better school than the one. I went to this first one because I got a small scholarship from them, and then it was like, it just wasn't the organization I thought it was going to be. The coach was just a fucking old nightmare guy, just stuck in his ways. Like I said before, same kind of guy. Mm-hmm. So then I went back up to Southern New Hampshire, did like a private trial with them, got on the team, and then I was on campus until I got hurt, and then I switched to online and finished up my degree from there.
But playing Division II, can't you, like, aren't there way less NCAA rules?
As far as what?
Making money?
No. NCAA eligibility is like if you lose your eligibility as a
flying by on a motorcycle.
There you go. If you get paid $1 for playing that, you're considered a professional athlete.
I mean, I know that college players are starting to get paid, but
it's different now. That's why. I mean, they're trying to. They should be getting paid. By the way, Division I athletes should be getting paid.
I was a Division I athlete, but tennis team, we didn't make any money for the school. But
sure.
The basketball team, the football team,
they're making millions of dollars.
The baseball team.
If the coach is getting paid $100 million or $50 million, I think you can give each kid on the fucking school the thing $100 grand. You won't even feel it. Like, what are we talking about? They have crazy money. They're fucking athletes, dude. They're essentially professional athletes that happen to be at a school. That's all it is. It's an insane. That was not my lifestyle. It was not the same as a Division I athlete. Although baseball is different from basketball than it is from football and all that kind of shit. But man, it's I forget your question.
I forget my question too. But being around AA, did those guys make any money?
Some of them did. That's the thing.
What kind of money though?
So some of them are like the first draft pick. You know what I mean? They go right to AA. So they're on a big fat rookie contract, multi-million dollars. Other guys have been in the minor league system for like 5-6 years. They're making, $75,000 to $150,000 a year. Still decent money to play baseball, but there's no longevity in it unless you make that next bump. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there was a couple of guys that I caught for there that ended up making it to the big leagues, both either for the Blue Jays or for other teams. Like this guy, Mark Zepchinski, ended up pitching and winning a World Series with the Cardinals. This other guy, Danny Farquhar, ended up going to the Royals and won a World Series with them. So it was cool to, like, once I was out of it, just to watch these guys that I knew and see what happens. So a lot of them went and played like international ball. Like one guy went and like won a championship with the Netherlands or something like that. But yeah, man, they got paid enough to, like, they didn't have to worry about money, but it wasn't like, only a couple of them I knew had like fuck you money.
Did you ever think about maybe trying going to the next level if it was the Blue Jays and actually like catching for the team?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a perfect storm for me to even be able to do the bullpen catching I did. So the reason it was even available for me to do that was they had 2 catchers on their roster. One was their main catcher, and one was a guy who also would DH and would also play outfield. outfield sometimes. So there was nobody that was always ready to warm up the guy that was about to go in the game, or like the catcher stuck on second base in between innings to go run out there and warm up the pitcher before the catcher gets all his gear back on. And so that was my job, basically, was just doing that. So to go to the next level, they wouldn't have had me go up to the big leagues, because there's a minor league guy that would rather be the big league bullpen catcher. You know what I mean? So it would have been a matter of going to college, killing it in college, staying healthy, getting drafted, and then working my way up through the system properly.
Do you think being a catcher, you had a chance of being drafted if they had a pinch fielder position?
Yes, defensively, yes. Because I was really good defensively. I was very strong at like blocking the ball, working with pitchers. I could throw guys out at second base, no problem. Like I said, very strong arm. I was throwing guys out for my knees and stuff. Like catchers are measured on what's called a pop time. So that's the pop of my glove to the pop of the second baseman's glove. And major league average is like a 2 second. I was doing it in like 1.7, 1.8 seconds. So it was like, that was my strength, was doing. That was funny, pinch fielder. That was always something I thought of growing up. I was like, man, if there's just a pinch fielder, I would be so much happier.
When's the last time you got down there? Like it was catching.
So I played in like a men's league. It must have been like a couple months ago. I think it was like May or June. There's a men's league that's like 28 and over or something like that, around New Hampshire. And one of my buddies who's a comic plays on it as well. This guy, Ben Quick. If they have time, they'll just ask me to come in and I'll do a couple of bats, catch a game for them and stuff like that. So I've done that like once a year for the last 2 years. My first like getting back into baseball after my arm injury was like playing a co-ed softball league. Boston Comedy had a softball league. There's 5 or 6 teams that were all comics or like comedy adjacent people. And it was just fun. We'd show up on a Tuesday. Everyone would just be hitting the ball around, drinking beers and shit like that, and then go to a show before or after, that kind of stuff. So
when did you move to New York?
It was June of last year. So,
wow,
yeah,
bro.
Yeah, June of 2020.
I had no idea. I thought you'd been here for years.
Yeah, no, I was planning to. I mean, I'd been coming back and forth a lot. That's the good thing about being in New England. It's 3-4 hour drive if you do it at the right time. So I would be coming here on Sundays, just doing any show I could, open mics, fucking bringer shows, whatever I could find for a while. And then JFL, I did New Faces in 2019. That helped me kind of meet more people. And then just doing the road, you meet a lot more comics. And after the New Faces, I was planning to move here. So going into, from July 2019 through the end of the year, we're like, all right, let's try and find my wife a job out here. Because at the time, she was still working a day job. Let's, try and find an apartment. Let's try and go there as much as I can, be present in the scene, all that kind of stuff. My wife, we find her a job like around February, and then we're like, all right, next month, let's go apartment hunting. And then it was like, this COVID thing's a little weird. Let's wait a week. We'll wait a week. And then if that works out, then we'll go. And then like, thank God we didn't come here and sign a lease.
Where were you during COVID?
I was in New Hampshire. Yeah.
And were you super bummed?
I was bummed just because I had so much stuff lined up.
Momentum.
Post JFL. I was meeting with TV networks. I was meeting with all these agents and stuff like that. And almost every agent I met with got furloughed or got pushed off or got their like roster minimized. So there was nothing there. I was going out to LA to do like this like work on my animated show with this animation house, and then work with them to pitch it to networks. That whole like system they were building, they stopped doing it. So it's not like for me, it was like, all right, well, now I need to just do stuff myself. So I started making my own animations by myself. I started, doing podcasts. I started just posting old stand-up clips and just trying to get as much momentum as I could in that side of things. And it's worked out so far. It's just a matter of trying to keep growing that fucking number next to your name, making more people see and care about you, and try and make a fucking career out of this thing,
Totally, man. Yeah, I was taking UCB classes. You've heard of UCB?
Yeah.
And we were supposed to have our class show that March 13th, and then right after that, I was going to try out for the Lloyd team, who performs once a week at that theater in Hell's Kitchen.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, everything just shut down. So I really needed to get more into stand-up, because I was doing improv a ton, like 3 or 4 years, and I wasn't doing stand-up as much.
Sure.
And then I realized once stand-up came back, like, this is what I need to be doing, just because they don't even have a UCB anymore in New York.
Well, and the good thing about stand-up is you're not like reliant on anybody else either. You know what I mean? Like you can show up, you're not worried about fucking James showing up in a pissed off mood, or Gabby's boyfriend broke up with him, and like it affects the whole show. It's you showing up and putting on your show, and the rest of it doesn't really shouldn't really affect you, you know. But yeah, man, but yeah, it was like all the touring stuff that was going on. Like it was like, oh, 2 weeks away, I'll do this too. And I was like, nah, 2 more weeks. Okay, well, at least I'll be able to do May. And then everything was just falling apart. So it's like, it was frustrating being in New Hampshire for that period of time, but, I was grateful to be there, be with family and stuff like that, and be in a place where COVID wasn't like wreaking havoc. Like there was very few cases. It wasn't like people were still wearing masks and shit like that, but it wasn't like my aunts were getting it and dying, or like it was much more mild up in the Northeast, I think.
Did it feel like a small town though?
Not really. I mean, my town's I live right on the border of New Hampshire, or I lived right on the border of New Hampshire and Mass. So it was, it's like 60,000 population, something like that. So it's still like a proper city, I guess, where you have the Main Street area, but it's not. It was just I don't know. It was just a good place to be. It was just a good place to be for that period of time, rather than being in the middle. Like we didn't have riots anywhere. We didn't have any of that stuff to worry about. It was just fucking people dealing with the same shit, going like, "This is stupid, right?" Like, yeah, it's fucking. I hate this.
This fucking mask doesn't even work.
I don't fucking. What are we wearing this for? I'll wear it, but I'm gonna fucking bitch about it. You know.
Only in the grocery store.
Yeah, fuck them.
Fuck yeah, Drew. This was amazing. Hey, Drew Dunn, guys, great hilarious time, comic Drew. Pop up your Instagram vocally so we can follow you and just check on the journey.
Yeah. Follow me at Drew Dunn Comedy, Drew Dunn on YouTube, and then DrewDunnComedy.com for all my tour dates. Coming to a city near you.
Let's go. Drew, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Peace.